We'll be talking to Liberal Democrat Senator David Leyonhjelm. Now, I know David Leyonhjelm in particular is very much against taxation being used as a way of trying to change our behaviour. Last time I talked to him, it was about cigarettes and the fact that they'd gone up down to, $36, $38 a pack. The latest is response to this week, the coalition of health groups calling for a 20% sugar tax, or in particular, tax on sugary drinks, and going a step further, also wanting a ban on advertising of junk food between 8:30 and 9:30 on the television. Now, there's already some restrictions in regard to that. They want them extended. I just think generally that you should encourage healthy behaviour. The big stick approach is not the way to go. And I see, coincidentally, that Western Australia, their government, is looking at doing the same thing on booze, considering enforcing a floor price on takeaway booze to stop people getting hammered on cheap alcohol. Their Premier, Mark McGowan, says people could buy a bottle of wine for just a few dollars. It was a problem for alcoholics. The availability of alcohol in our community is an issue. Well, I don't think that taxing it, or making it illegal for that matter, is going to work. Can't you remember what happened with Prohibition in the United States in the 20s and 30s? This wouldn't happen with sugar, but if you do price things too highly or ban them, you just develop a black market. The only people that benefits the criminals, and we're already seeing that with some very high-profile cases when it comes to cigarettes and the illegal importation of cigarettes. We mentioned that health experts have called on the government to introduce a tax on sugary beverages. Democrat Senator David Leyonhjelm has slammed the proposal as just another excuse for a tax dressed up as a health issue. Now, while he accepts that Australia's growing obesity problem is a serious issue, Senator Leyonhjelm says attempts elsewhere in the world to introduce a sugar tax have proved ineffective. So he's joining us on the line right now. Thanks for your time.
Good morning.
Well, I know that you're concerned about, obviously, the issue of obesity, but look, this is the second time in recently I've talked to you about the idea of a tax as a way to affect behaviour. The other one was the recent increases in cigarette tax. So generally, as a rule, do you think that taxes are not the way to change people's behaviour?
Not very much, no. Smoking's not going down in Australia at the moment. It hasn't been for a couple of years now. And so you would think that if the taxes were going to affect behaviour, they would have been having a pretty big effect on smoking. We have the highest taxes on cigarettes in the world. And it's not, as I said, it's not having much effect at all. So I'd be very surprised if it had much effect on
the sugary drinks
situation.
Yeah.
So it hasn't worked in other countries of the world. Mexico, France, and Denmark. In fact, Denmark dropped their sugar tax because it wasn't doing any good, and what they found out was an awful lot of people were crossing the border into Germany and buying their sweets anyway. People have a way of getting around these sorts of things. There is another good reason why a tax on sugar is a bad idea, and that is that it raises the cost of food. And, the people who are proposing this sort of thing, they're not the poor people. They're not the ones who are struggling to put food on the table and feed the kids. They don't really give a stuff about those sort of people. And it's absolute elitist arrogance to say, we know better, we know what's good for those sort of people, we'll put a tax on food so that it's more expensive, so they'll end up with less money in their pocket. It really is a fairly disgraceful attitude, in my opinion.
Well, the piece that you particularly wrote for News Limited, you've gone through the different scenarios, haven't you, of how this has played out in countries that have introduced a sugar tax?
Yes. Well, Mexico did it. They saw an initial decline, but it turns out that people were probably stockpiling soft drinks. So it's soft drinks that these nanny state people, the food Nazis, are targeting. And so what happened was soft drink consumption declined in the year following it, but it does look as if people stockpiled soft drinks before the tax was introduced. And then a year subsequent to that, consumption had gone back up again. In fact, I know it was in Mexico, it was just slightly down, 0.4% was down. France has introduced a sugar tax. Consumption is in fact up 4.2%. And as I said, Denmark dropped their sugar tax not that long ago. because it was making no difference. You know, they had just as many fat bums in after they brought in the sugar tax as before they brought in the sugar tax. And the reality is that we do have too many people with too much weight around their middle bits and their bottom bits and all that sort of stuff. No question about that. But this idea that there's some sort of simple solution, whacking a tax on sugar or whacking a tax on anything, really it just denies the fact that people are responsible for what goes into their mouth. And that's where it should end.
I mean, you use the word nanny state, and obviously this is a case of it. And as you say, when we talk about taxes affecting behaviour, we've already recently chatted about cigarettes. Another one where it comes up from time to time is alcohol as well.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, they made a huge mistake with the Alco Pops tax some years ago. I think that was during the Rudd or Gillard era. Yep. They made the assumption that it was causing that these Alco Pops, these pre-mixed drinks of spirits and some sort of soft drink were causing binge drinking. There was no good evidence for that, but the narrative got popular support, and the government said, "Oh well, we'll just whack a higher tax on them. That'll stop them." It made no difference whatsoever. No difference at all to alcohol consumption. What the people who are drinking these mixed drinks would did instead was just buy a straight bottle of spirits and some...
Just mix it.
And mix them up themselves. Right. I mean, the assumption is that by these nanny staters that consumers and the public are dumber than they are, and that therefore they can outsmart them. Well, the truth is that a lot of these nanny staters aren't as smart as they think they are, and that's half their problem. If they gave the public a bit of credit for intelligence, maybe they'd come up with better policies, or even better, leave people alone.
What about the other aspect of what's been suggested this week regarding sugar, and that is the ban on advertising at certain times of day, particularly television? They were talking about fast food, sugary foods in general. So we're not just talking about, the sugary drinks, and for that to be extended from 8:30 till 9:30 p.m. as well. I mean, what's your view on that?
Well, the idea that you are going to rush out and say, I really need some soft drink after having seen an ad on TV, or I'm going to rush out and buy something with a high sugar content, something else with a high sugar content, after having seen an ad on TV, is similar sort of nanny state thinking. Oh, well, we're all stupid sheep and we don't know our own minds, and we're all being manipulated by this advertising, and we managed to ban advertising on cigarettes, and aren't we clever for doing that? Now let's be clever on something else. It's very similar thinking. I mean, there are practical aspects to it in that, do we really care if the youngsters, and we're talking probably teenagers here, do we really care if they see an ad for something sweet, soft drinks or something like that, when the sort of things that they can watch on TV are, by most people's standards, way, way worse. Violence and sexual innuendos and all sorts of weird things like that. And of course, the other thing is, how realistic is it to say to youngsters, well, you're not allowed to watch an ad for soft drink or McDonald's or something like that on TV before 9:30. Yeah. But there's a fair number of kids out there who are working in McDonald's, selling other people soft drinks and McDonald's.
I never thought of that. That's true.
At 9:30. Yeah. How crazy can you get?
I guess in some extent they were maybe even talking about smaller kids, not that they necessarily would be up at that time of night. But and when you come to the smaller kids, you've got to say, is this really taking away the role that the parents should be fulfilling?
Yes, you're absolutely right. It's stepping into the role that the parents have, and saying, well, we are, once again, assuming that you're too stupid to know what's good for your own kid, and so therefore we have to step in because we're really clever, us nanny staters, and we're really clever, and we know what's good for your kid, and we'll force you to somehow be a better parent.
Okay, well, let's look at the other equation of this. This is the big stick attitude who trying to change people's behaviour. Do you think there is a case, though, for there to be the promotion of better, healthy living options?
Yes, information is a reasonable expectation of government. So if there actually was a formula for not getting a fat bum, I think there would be a reasonable proposition that the government says to people, if you do this, you won't get a fat bum. And there is no magic formula. I mean, for every diet, there's 1,000 variations of it.
Yep.
Should the paleo diet was I think last year.
I've given up trying to count the fad diets.
Yeah, that's right. We have all kinds of diets, and there's no magic formula. And the idea that you can focus on just one element in your diet, even by regulation or even by just giving advice on it, is just wishful thinking. So, I mean, until we come up with something which is a magic formula, if we ever do, or a drug which helps us all to be skinny, what we've got to do is say to people, it is your responsibility. Don't eat so much. Try to eat more healthy food, which doesn't put on weight, and get some exercise. What more can you do? And the answer, when you go to a doctor and you get diagnosed with diabetes, as has happened to me, the advice is lose a bit of weight. I didn't need to lose very much weight, but I did need to lose a little bit. And the formula was, when you get your meal, just don't eat half of it.
The portion size, in other words.
That's right, portion size. Just don't eat half of it.
Yep.
You'll feel just as full. Eat half what's on your plate, and leave the other half, and just don't eat it. And you won't notice it, and in the end your weight will gradually start to fall.
Yeah, so they're the tips. So we need to promote more healthy living, as you say, as opposed to the big stick attitude of taxation. I've got to leave it there for this morning, but thanks for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.